And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you all coming out to support us. And I've got a great panel with us today who is going to share a lot of insight with us about how they have used their degree from A&S and liberal arts and specifically political science. Ironically, all of our panelists with us today are poli-sci graduates. And so just thank you, Ania, Deborah, and Felicity for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Osborne, and I'm the Program Director of Alumni Engagement here at the University of Cincinnati Alumni Association. And I'm going to toss it over. I'm going to introduce our moderator, Felicity Boykin. Felicity received her bachelor's degree from UC in communications and public relations. She's a passionate about strategic planning and impactful messaging. She works with UC School of Public and International Affairs on marketing strategy, creating meaningful connections, and inviting engagement. Felicity, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. I'm excited to be here. And without further ado, I want to introduce our first panelist today. We have Deborah Hampton. She graduated from the University of Cincinnati with a degree in political science. Deborah is currently the trademark team leader at Chemoris Company and is regarded as one of the few highly specialized non-attorney with the extensive expertise in intellectual property. In addition to her professional work, Deborah is deeply involved in volunteer leadership. She recently became president-elect of the International Trademark Association and serves as chair of the planning committee, and is also a member of both the Leadership Development Committee and the Women's Leadership Initiative Project. So welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And next, I'd like to welcome Ania. Ania Cosby is also a graduate of the University of Cincinnati, with a bachelor's in political science and a master's in public administration. Ania is currently the grants director at the YMCA of Greater Cincinnati, where she leads the grant proposal efforts and manages relationships with foundations, government agencies, and corporate sponsors. She is regarded for her systematic approach to tracking progress and ensuring strong connections with funders. And prior to the YMCA, Anaya held roles at Ignite Philanthropy, the Urban League of Greater Southwest Ohio, and also Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. She is active in various professional organizations, and she has spoken at both Miami University and UC, sharing her expertise in the nonprofit sector and grant funding. So welcome, Anaya. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, first I just wanted to start with asking Deborah and Anaya kind of about your college experience. So when you started college, what were your career aspirations and how did that maybe change and evolve by the time that you graduated college?
I can go first. I started my journey at UC in 2017. When I came in, I thought I was going to go into mechanical engineering by my senior year, but I realized I really hated math. But I was really interested in history and I was really interested in politics, so I switched my major to political science. I thought maybe I would go into law or become some type of politician. But as I was going through my political science journey, I realized maybe I really don't want to be a politician, maybe a political analyst, and it kind of flip-flopped. By my senior year, I thought I was going to go to law school. I was heavily involved, I was planning, and then I realized I really wanted to have deeper connections to my community and broader impact. And I didn't feel like I was going to get that going directly into politics, but I still had that aspiration to do that in some aspect, but I wanted to still stay on a local level. So I went back to school and got my MPA, and then realized I definitely did not want to become a politician. But I did want to start working in the nonprofit sector and be more hands-on and face-to-face people in my community.
Interesting. Okay, in my case, I actually attended UC with the specific purpose of attending the law school, UC's law school once I got my BA. So during my era, the go-to was if you wanted to go to law school, political science was the major. Anyone who wanted law school, usually it was political science, possibly philosophy, or they were English majors. So um, honestly, that's what I was told. I didn't even know that potentially I had other options. But having said that, I've always loved legal, and at the time thought my only option in terms of being in the legal space was to be a lawyer. So that's how I came to UC. The second part was on my maternal side, my family, my mother was from UC, and I think she thought, oh, she gets a twofer. She gets to come, see relatives, and relatives will be close to me because I will be at UC and they can keep an eye on me. So that's how I wound up at UC. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you both for sharing. So I wanted to touch kind of on the focus of our today's discussion. So our conversation's focused on that non-traditional career journey. Could each of you kind of share a specific twist or turn in your career path that led you to where you are now?
Sure. I think this time I'll start. So when I graduated, as I said, I originally attended UC with the intent of going to UC's law school. I'm from the New York, New Jersey area. I was really homesick. So I went back home and I was tired of being poor, candidly. So I went back home and I thought, okay, so I'll take a break, I'll earn some money, but then I'll resume school. But I still wanted to work in the legal area. And the only job I could find was as a receptionist in a law firm. And as it turns out, I was put in the paralegal division of the law firm. I had never heard of paralegals. I didn't know what they were. Um, and after a few months, the supervisor there said, why are you here doing what you're doing? Which actually was kind of cool because all I really did was sit and read the newspaper, magazines and stuff all day, and I got paid for it because hardly anybody came to the paralegal division. But what she suggested to me was to go back and get a paralegal certificate, an ABA approved paralegal certificate, and do that for a while and see how I liked it. And if I didn't, continue with my plans of going to law school. Well, as fate would have it, 43, 44 years later, I'm officially, my title or my profession is considered paralegal, but that's how I got here. And I wound up in a field, intellectual property, that really married the two things that I love, or one of the two things that I love the most. I love the law, I love shopping and fashion. And that's how it all came together. But that's how I wound up literally in the job that I have. And just to take it really quickly one step further, the first job interview I had once I was graduating was with an intellectual property attorney who was a trademark attorney. She interviewed me for an hour. And after an hour, she offered me the job. And that's literally how I got into this field. So I always say it was fate, but this is where I was supposed to be. Yeah.
That's great.
Mine was kind of very unorthodox and very confusing. Um, so when I went back for my MPA, I was working a couple different student jobs at the time. I was a TA. I was doing a research for SPIA, for cybersecurity for a while, and then I talked to one of my professors because she knew I was kind of still figuring out my kind of like my political science, mixing that with my MPA and what I want to do in my career with that. She knew that I was kind of interested in doing politics, but maybe doing something with campaigns specifically. And she got me an internship down at City Hall for a council member. That's how I met my first connection, another UC Bearcat, and they were teaching me about zoning and housing. And I was responsible for making a lot of presentations for my council member and doing a little bit of social media. But at that time, I knew that I wanted to do something, start getting jump started in my career and be more involved with communities because I was doing a lot of community service at the time. So I came across a job for Keep Cincinnati Beautiful at the time. And I was like, okay, I've been an orientation leader. You see, I know how to get people excited. I know how to get people connected with resources on campus. So I can do that just a broader Cincinnati. And I applied for that job. I was just applying for a community engagement coordinator position, nothing, anything crazy. And then if you know anything about the nonprofit space, it's duties as assigned. So you'd come in for one thing and then you get a whole bunch of other things. So when I applied for that job during my interview, they were like, hey, are you interested in doing grant administration? And I'm just like, I have no idea what this is. I'm 22 years old. What are you talking about? I don't even know what those words mean. They're like, oh, we do grants, do community projects to help people fund them. So they have control, communities have control of the projects that they want to see in their community. And it's funds that come from our organization and from the city of Cincinnati. And that was very, very intimidating. But I also really wanted to be doing community engagement. So I was like, yeah, I'll take it if that's what you want me to do. I came back, City Hall, working there, and I was talking to one of the council members, and it turns out that grant was something that they have been a part of building. And they expressed like, hey, I feel confidence that you could really do this. So don't feel nervous that you can't do grant administration. I've had this full trust in you. And so I was like, okay, but they're probably not going to pick me. And then I ended up getting the job. Then I was like, oh no, like I have to really, really hunker down, learn this. And it launched basically my whole career and what I do in the nonprofit sector. I was doing community engagement, but in that role, being a grant administrator, I had like the privilege to talk to so many different people in greater Cincinnati and understand their stories and the different problems that communities were facing. And then kind of utilizing my political science degree, I was like, haha, I see how it all connects where I'm doing this research, I'm collecting data, I'm understanding the demographics of areas around Cincinnati and what are those critical needs and what are the funding needs, and be able to be in that grant administrator position, being able to take that information and make PowerPoints and Excel sheets and all this information to be presented and shared with City Council to understand why that grant funding is a necessity for these communities to thrive. Especially when we're focusing on the neighborhoods was experiencing the top 10 gun violence. So a lot of those projects had to do with gun violence and putting those safety measures in place to protect the neighborhoods and the kids and around the surrounding school areas. And that was, it made me very excited to think I have the small role in creating such an impact. And then I was like, oh, it kind of finally clicked, like, no, I'm not a politician. No, I'm not doing political analyst or anything, but I'm using my poli-sci degree to understand data and how that translates to funding and the needs that we have to create change in our communities.
Oh, wow, thank you. That was excellent. And I wanted to talk a little bit more. You talked about how your role, your connections and your role developed and you had this kind of career jumpstart. Could you talk about some specific skills or knowledge that you gained from your political science degree that you found most applicable or helpful in your early career stages?
Yes. So so even though like some people think nonprofits aren't inherently political, they a little bit are, because the outside political things that are going on from bills, levies, and different things can affect everybody's daily life. So nonprofits have to be aware of those changes to address those needs, whether that's food insecurity, housing, education. So bringing my political science degree into that, being able to kind of critically look at like who our donors are, what are some of the common running themes that we're seeing in Cincinnati that are affecting people, and understanding the specific groups in Cincinnati, whether that be people who are disabled, the Black community, Hispanic community, and how that affects each group differently. and taking that information and kind of breaking it down so we understand what grants and what funding we need to be looking for to make targeted programming or enhance our current programming to support those groups.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Deborah, I wanted to jump over to you. So looking back on your career, what are some unexpected ways your political science major has really benefited you throughout your career that you may have not initially considered?
So great question. So with the work that I do in protecting, so essentially what I do, let me explain a little bit about exactly what I do. So I protect brand names, or we call them trademarks or brand names. So that's a word, name, logo, a combination thereof. And you file them with uh, government agencies like in the US, the US Patent and Trademark Office, but I do that globally. And so I come in contact not only with officials from that agency, but government officials, period, um, globally. And so I have to have a good understanding of the political landscape and what's going on, like particularly right now, of the political landscape, what's going on, and how it could potentially affect my company, and even the association that I'm involved in. So that's one thing. But there are certain classes and things that I've taken at UC that I use every day. Logic, Boolean logic, and just from a strategic standpoint, the work that I do, in terms of, there might be certain issues, there might be problems, there might be third parties out there that may be a hindrance. So, thinking strategically. And then in life, politics are everywhere. We think politics in terms of literally, our government, etc. But politics are a part of your life. And really, when you get out into the working world, that is the number one thing I would say that is going to help you excel or ultimately keep you stagnant, because the working world overall, it's a political game, and it's like stacking. You stack your chips, like if you're playing poker. And a lot of times there's that give and take. I need something, they need something. What do I have to give to get what I need? Who do I have to bypass? Think of a short game, long game. So a lot of that has come into play through the years of me working. But the biggest thing is meeting a lot of government officials, and especially being careful in what you say, how you say it. And then there are certain customs and etiquette you have to take into consideration. And if a particular country is volatile, like the situation with Ukraine and Russia, that had an effect on the work that I do, and the association I'm involved in, to the point where some of the membership was no longer allowed to participate in the association, and certain countries we no longer were doing business with. So you have to constantly know what's going on in the political landscape. And most companies have government affairs, and I interact a lot with government affairs, and you have to know what issues are out there, and what they're lobbying on or about. So that's how it comes into play. Mhm.
Thank you. On top of some of the skills you talked about, we often hear about those transferable skills of a liberal arts education. Could you give some examples of how you've applied those transferable skills in your career?
Sure. So in the intellectual property world, it's really about dealing with people who work in research and development and scientific, technical STEM, and then there's a lot of creative. There may be people who are artistic, um, and literally they have yin and yang conversations. And STEM folk have a tendency to think in terms of beginning, middle, end. Obviously, creatives, totally different way of thinking. With my background, you have to know how to communicate, and you also have to know how to write. Um, and I would say a liberal arts background and a political science background helps because you have to at times be tactful in what you write and how you write it. And that's helped me tremendously. And candidly, I've seen the difference for those who don't have a liberal arts background, um, versus those who are, very technical. And I'll tell you really quickly, corporate world, they're all about let's take this study or, let's take this test and find out what your personality is and etc. So in my group, um, it's all patent people. They have a hard time communicating because they want to tinker. They want to make stuff or pull stuff apart uh, and for a lot of business leaders, they think high level. They're thinking across the big spectrum, whereas a lot of times in my group, they're getting down in the weeds. And so my management did a presentation. And after an hour, the head of the business said, I have no idea what you just said. And how's that going to make me some money? And so when we got tested, they were kind of like over here, very kind of uber analytical, whereas, I fell in the middle. I could kind of go either way. And it makes made a difference. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but hopefully I did.
Yeah, certainly. I wanted to ask
Okay.
Anaya, is there anything that you could add maybe in terms of those transferable skills that you've applied during your career?
Yes. So yes to everything Deborah said. There is in a STEM brain, this is the beginning, middle, end. And
Mm,
that could only get you so far, at least from like a nonprofit sector way. Because I think one of those transferable skills is problem solving. And it's not just a math equation you just kind of put
right.
on the board. People are very complex with very complex needs to come
Absolutely.
from so many different areas. And it's not a one size fits all kind of approach. So even when you're doing kind of research from that perspective, you have to really get into those focus groups and things and really understand where people are coming from. Because even when you're doing like sweeping programs and things, not everybody fits like ones and zeros, everybody fits into that program where we could be excluding people because we're not thinking of the little tiny factors like maybe transportation, childcare, and different things to get people more involved. And unlike Deborah was saying, on a high level, technical executive level, it's just like, okay, so what's this broad thing? But then you kind of have the people going down, it's really more face-to-face kind of interaction where you're seeing people coming into your space are saying and what they would like to see from us. So I guess that's why I think it is a transferable skill to have, be very critical thinking and very problem solving, more hands-on.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point with the critical thinking. Because you literally have to read the room, you have to read the audience. Who are you talking to today? What kind of clout do they have? Do they have clout? And if they don't, are they connected to someone who's connected to someone who's connected to someone who does? And through the years, I've seen people fail miserably because they didn't read the room, they didn't know the politics, and that may be politics literally, but politics within that particular organization. Um, and they just want to go from 0 to 1,000, go to the top. It doesn't work that way. I was that way at one point. I wanted to go from 0 to 1,000, and I had the head of my department one time said to me, and that's where I got the whole chip analogy. You got to earn those chips. And if you don't do things in a certain way or prove yourself, essentially, you're not going to get the chips. But once you earn them, then you got to know how to spend them, when to spend them. And the second part of it is, am I going to spend my chip on you? Because when I spend my chip on you, essentially I'm vouching for you. And so what you do is going to be a reflection on me. And I can tell you, politics, we learn it and we think, oh, I couldn't do certain things, or it seems like certain things are straightforward, but they're not. Because the higher you climb, the more invested people are, and you need something, over in this corner. But two or three things are in your path, and you think, how do I get there? But I really need this. So it might be one of the things that's in your path. They want something, not necessarily the best thing. So what do you have to do to negotiate? You might have to give a little. And then sometimes what happens? People say you're a seller, or people say you're not true to who you are, but they don't know the background. They're not seeing what's going on behind the scenes. The other flip side is there are times when, and again, political science, what's going on in the real world, you're not doing anything. I don't see you doing anything. I don't see any progress. But often what's happening is sometimes progress doesn't come overnight. You're weeding and feeding slowly because it takes time, but people want instantaneous results, and that often doesn't happen. I think about Barack Obama and being the first African American president, and I've heard both sides. Many people say he did a lot of things. For example, for African Americans, he did nothing. But navigating those waters and the things, because he wasn't just a president for African Americans, he's a president for all. So, and every demographic has issues. So just think about what we learn in political science, and then taking all of that and then going into the real world. Now, what do I do with this? I have all of this knowledge. Now, how do I put it into action? And that's hard. It can be hard sometimes, but helpful.
Yeah, thank you. On the topic of that liberal arts degree, you both have that degree in education, but your graduation years span a significant period. How have you observed the perceived value of a liberal arts education change over time, especially in the job market?
I can go first. Growing up, I think I was seeing a big push for more people to go into STEM. STEM was pushed very, very hard when I was growing up. And even then, I originally thought I was going to go into engineering. It was pushed so much. But I realized like my skills and my passions and interests lied in a different direction, which was the liberal arts. I think now more than ever that we need that. Communication is very, very important, knowing who your audience is and understanding, again, the complexities of people. It's not some equation, you just pull out a book and then you can figure out everything about everyone. Everybody has complex backgrounds. And I think in this job market too, again, it varies even if you're in STEM or a liberal arts kind of degree. Nothing's fixed. But from my perspective, being just in the liberal arts, kind of navigating the job market, I think it's very versatile. Because you can do so many different things. It doesn't have to be like, this is the one thing that you do. So for me, from a perspective of political science and getting my MPA, yes, I work in the nonprofit sector space. Typically, people think I would just be working in a government related job, maybe doing something at City Hall, but the skills do translate into communication, problem solving, critical thinking, that data collection. I'm able to use that in my role, but also in my role, I'm not only just doing grants, I'm doing marketing because I'm helping get that PR and writing, how we want to market ourselves and understand our mission. I'm also doing innovation and strategy building so we understand how our wording and the data that we're collecting is going to change the future of our organization. So in the job market world, that is very, very valuable to have because you have so many different skills that you're applying to different parts of whatever your job you're starting off with, and you can bring those skills to a different job and understand how to market yourself, that you don't do this one specific skill. You do 20 different skills that help that one skill that you kind of build off on.
Good point. In my world, I would say, particularly in the legal world, in the STEM world, there's always been this perception in the legal world, there's lawyers and everybody else. There's lawyers, I'll say it again, lawyers and everybody else. In the STEM, it's, doctors, scientists, et cetera, et cetera. But there is a whole world that most people don't know about, and many of us fall into it, and that's the world of intellectual property. If you do know about it, most think you have to have a technical background, or you have to have an engineering degree, or you have to have a scientific background. Technically, you don't. I have a patent. Because my son, around the time the first Apple phone was created, y'all too young for this, but back in the day, they used to charge not only for how many calls coming in, calls coming out, text messages coming in, text messages coming out. He had the first iPhone. Our phone bill was through the roof. And one day at lunch, because I was working for a company that was an offshoot of AT&T, and I said, wouldn't it be great if for the cell phone, I could track his use and turn it off when I wanted to. You don't always need a prototype. And that was born, and that's how I had a patent. I've worked and I've done patents, but intellectual property is a specialty, highly specialized field in legal. So if you have a technical background and you wanted to go into it, you can become a patent agent. You can make a heck of a lot of money, just like a lawyer or a doctor or a scientist, those fields. In my case, I'm more on what they call the creative, which is protecting, again, trademarks, copyrights, what we call trade dress. And when I talk about that, think about, the trade dress when you go into McDonald's or you see the golden arches. What do you think? McDonald's. When you see something that's blue, you think Walmart. That's all protectable. And I have traveled the world. I am not a lawyer. A lot of people think I am, but I'm not. I've trained lawyers in this field. And my goal right now is to make more young people aware of this field. Again, I got into it. I always say I didn't find it, it found me. So, and my degree, I know how it helps. Every time I think about my degree, I think in terms of my ability to communicate, my ability to read the room, the Boolean logic, philosophy, all of those things that makes my job 10 times easier. And I love it. And some of the companies that I've worked for, Victoria's Secret, if you go into Victoria's Secret, there are a lot of things that are there that I worked on in terms of their brand names. If you're familiar with, some of you will call it Diesel, some call it Diesel. I worked on that brand. I was responsible for getting it registered. So there you go.
Yeah, I love how you both kind of painted a picture for our students to see, career options with them also pursuing an education in the liberal arts. I know both of you kind of touched on it, but what are some misconceptions about a liberal arts degree in the professional world, and how can we address them?
Okay, I'm gonna take this one first because I'm older. That it's easy, that it's an easy degree, that we took softball and pool and didn't do anything, and we partied whatever for 4 years and got a degree and didn't do anything. That's so far from the truth. Totally. And sometimes it makes me angry because the amount of reading that we needed to do, the amount of writing that we had to do constantly. And, it was like you get done with one. That's why I toy with getting a master's. I do a lot of writing at work. I love school, but every time I think about getting a master's and I think, okay, I got to write paper. But I think that's the thing, that it's an easy degree, and you party and you get it and it's easy, and it's not. Okay, that was it for me.
No, just
you.
everything you said was just correct. That's how I feel, because even getting in, I'm just like, how are you going to eat? How are you going to take care of yourself? It's not a sustainable kind of degree. And I strongly disagree with that, because even it's what you do. It's not so much the degree itself, it's what you do with your degree. And again, having that flexibility opens so many doors for you to kind of go wherever you want based on your interests. And you shouldn't feel stuck to do the one thing that you do. And like Deborah was saying, it is a lot of reading. It is a lot of writing. And because I'm a glutton of punishment, I made my whole job writing all the time. But we do the work, and we do put in that time to understand people and the complex problems of our world. So if anything, you take away anything, understand that your degree is valuable, and is as valuable as you put in the work into it and what you want to take it to do.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I love that. So for some of our current arts and science students that might feel unsure about their career paths, what kind of advice would you give them regarding exploring those diverse opportunities and leveraging that liberal arts degree?
There's one thing I did not do when I was in college, and I wish I had. Recruiters would come to the school and they would have job fairs, etc. And I assumed that was only for like co-op students and engineering, the business majors, not for me. If that still happens at UC, attend those fairs, because if you're not 100% sure, then this is really actually the opportunity to explore. The world is your oyster. My son wanted to go into UC. He started out as an archaeology major. He wound up spending the majority of his career, collegiate career, in Japan and China. He switched his major to Asian studies. He wound up being in HR. Everyone thought he was going to be like a translator, etc. But that was his pivot. But attend those and talk to people. Get with the Alumni Association. Do things like this, but ask to talk to other alumni and see, you know, all of the different types of jobs that are out there. I didn't do that, but I also wanted to be in legal, so there was a reason. But if you're not sure, explore.
I think I guess there's three aspects to it. I think it's really important, especially as you're starting your career, there's a lot of like nerves and just thinking like of inadequacy to have your job, to do the thing that you're passionate about. I found what's been really helpful for me is like write a mission for yourself. Like, what is your mission? What are you passionate about? What do you really want to do? And then once you understand what your personal mission is, put that up against the places that you kind of want to aspire to be working in those spaces. List your skills, because sometimes we have we have the habit of somebody said, "What are your skills?" and your mind goes blank. Take some time to really like sit down and write down all your skills. You'd be surprised how many skills you have, even from the smallest job to the most crazy job. And then take that mission, your skills, and start reaching out to people. Again, the Alumni Association, people out there in the community who are doing the work that you're interested in. A lot of people are very friendly. Just like shoot an email to somebody like, "Hey, I'm a UC student. I'm really interested. Could you just share more about your work? What do I need to be working on? What professional skills do I need to be kind of working in that field?" And another thing would be, again, that imposter syndrome. When you apply for jobs, don't be scared because they list 100 things under that job description. Because this is my personal opinion. It's just wordy to be wordy because it sounds fancy. But a lot of the things that they have listed on there, you probably can do, and you're getting your degree to probably do over half of those things. You just have to be an advocate for yourself and be understanding of what skills you do have and what skills you don't, but be able to market yourself in a way that you are learning and you're making continuous strides to learn so you could become the best employee for that job or whatever thing you want to get into. So understanding your mission, making connections with your peers and alumni and people in your community, and then understanding where you fit into roles and being confident in applying.
Right. I'm just going to add though, but for those of you who are unsure and don't really know, think about what you really like to do, and see if those things that you really like to do, if it's something that you can turn into a profession, because that's an option. You know, my profession, the area of law that I wound up getting into, I would have never thought it would be something that I'm so passionate about already, which was, you know, fashion, clothes, etc. They're directly tied together. So think about that. And then, you know, other things, although it drives me crazy, with all the because I've discovered I'm OCD with certain sounds, like repetitive sounds drives me to drink. But gaming, who would have thought? That's, you know, that's now a profession. Or so just sometimes you have to think outside of the box. I think that's the other thing. And my generation, it was kind of here are the boxes, here are the professions, this is what you're supposed to do. You all don't necessarily have that. There are so many things that have now become, quote, professions. So think outside of the box as you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great add-on. I think there may be some students out there that do the work and write down their skills and they know what they've learned, but maybe there's some students that they don't know where they want to work yet, or they don't know what they want to do. They know they have skills. So I think that was a great add-on of just decide what you like and see if you can turn that into something. Um, so I wanted to kind of look forward here in our last couple minutes. Looking forward, how do you see the role of liberal arts education evolving in preparing graduates for future work, especially with this rise of AI?
Oh, um, from a practical standpoint, AI and cybersecurity, that's where the money is right now. Um, it's like the internet and domains and domain names. It was like the Wild Wild West, and people put a lot of money into it. There were a lot of different ways you could go with it. You could create your own niche with AI right now, because everyone's trying to understand it, trying to figure out how to use it, trying to protect, again, their intellectual property, as far as that's concerned. And when they're not doing that, they're all about cybersecurity. Those, if you want to talk about, top jobs, that's what's out there. That's the trend right now. Someone has a job here. They're like director of AI. God knows what she does, because and really what she's doing is what everybody else is doing. What is AI? How can it be used? Am I infringing on somebody's rights, whether from a copyright standpoint? Can I take it and use it and create stuff? Is it going to replace humans totally? No. But is it going to make work easier? Yes, because I recently discovered PowerPoints and stuff like that. Do a PowerPoint on the basics of intellectual property, and then we'll get it for you. And then you have to, tweak it or whatever. But that's where I think it's the trends.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say AI can never replace people. People are complex. AI can only understand so much about the complexities of where people come from, the things they say, and how we speak to each other. I kind of put it as an analogy of, you have the painter and the brush, and it's like the brush can't do anything without the painter kind of picking it up. And even then, if the brush is controlling you, you're not really the one creating the content, the art, the whatever it is. So it's the quote unquote the painter giving it substance. And that's where there is the importance of a liberal arts degree, because we pull from so many different skills and backgrounds and absorb so much information and interact with people and do that problem solving and that communicating. We're able to create such broad information, create wonderful things that AI just can't replicate. It's just not able to do that. That's why they train systems to kind of make AI better, but it's never going to be the exact thing. That's why people, when they generate AI, they have to immediately go in and start fixing things because it sounds like a robot speaking. And robot speaking is not going to appeal to a funder, whoever that audience you're trying to reach out to. It's pure human interaction that's going to get people like to feel attracted to what you're saying or selling.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. So we are on 2-minute warning here, sort of. So I wanted to give time for the audience to give some questions. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to remind everyone to kind of be respectful. We're in this space to conversate professionally. So with that, if there's anything, Anaya and Deborah, you want to add, feel free, but we are going to open up for questioning here, and you'll be able to kind of unmute your mic, or I believe you are able to type in the chat as well if you have a question.
Hey, Felicity, it's Professor Harknett here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Dr. Hardnick.
Hey, I just wanted to say on behalf of the school, as its director, Deborah and Ania, thanks so much for taking this time out. I actually learned a good bit of stuff from both of you. So it's terrific to have you re-engage. So I just wanted to say thanks for doing this, and stay in touch with us. And I'll throw it back over to you, Felicity. And by the way, Felicity, great job on the moderating.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
All right, over.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to do this. And you know, UC is forever ingrained in my heart. So whatever I can do at any time. And you know, I wish I'd had this when I was a student, you know, about to graduate. So
I'm always gonna love UC. A UC girl through and through.
mm,
UC has given me so many awesome connections, and even working in the nonprofit space, I get to meet so many different Bearcats in so many different roles. And I didn't know there was that many Bearcats working in the nonprofit sector in Cincinnati. And they've all taught me very valuable things and helped me grow in my career. So I'm always going to be grateful to UC and give back in any way I can.
Yeah, that's great. We're still waiting to see if anybody has some questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat box, but I kind of wanted to ask about, you know, how you're networking and building connections. You both kind of touched, I know Anaya, you touched on about how you met someone in your first position and it kind of led you through some roles. So how did those connections within the arts and sciences community play in your career development?
Yeah, so in my first job, I met a Bearcat who was in DAP or graduated DAP. Actually, two people from DAP. So they were heavily involved in learning about zoning and housing, and it was very, very complex. And that just went completely over my head. But when I was interning down at City Hall, they would take their time to actually like, explain the whole process to me. So I was doing my internship, also learning things side by side with a fellow Bearcat. And they were giving me like the skills to really understand what are some of the issues surrounding Cincinnati around those things, and how we can be like an advocate and how we understand how to help people with that. And then it kind of gave me the confidence when I went into my next role with grants and being grant administrator, understanding how to talk to communities and understanding those kind of complex things that kind of impede on people's lives, and how you can advocate for them from a funding perspective to create better outcomes.
for me, so number one, I am a Delta. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I pledged at UC through Zeta chapter. In May, it will be 45 years. I can't believe it. I've stayed pretty much active throughout the majority of that 45 years. I have stayed connected with my sorority sisters that came through UC, but also sorority sisters throughout the world. I've met and my sorors in Tokyo and just everywhere. So I always have something that signifies that I'm a Delta for a couple of reasons. One, it's a way for younger people to approach me. Because if you think about it, when we first get out of school, sometimes we're afraid to approach someone. So it's a conversation starter to let people know I'm approachable, but in the workplace, but externally, I've also met so many Deltas in my profession. And as far as connections, my first job, the first day I started, her name is Robin Bren. She became my mentor. To this day, all these years later, she's still my mentor. I have a few others, and now I mentor other people, but I've always been about paying it forward. And so if I encourage you all to, if nothing else, pay it forward, because somebody's going to do that for you at some point. So you want to do something for them. But my community overall, although it's global, surprisingly, it's small. Small in that everyone kind of knows everyone else. I served on a committee and through the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and you get nominated, and then you get chosen. Well, you get appointed ultimately by the U.S. Secretary of Commerce. The year that I was chosen, it was 3 UC folk, 3 Bearcats, and the odds of that, just yeah, but I try to stay open. I'm always talking about being a Bearcat, even if that other school who tried to trademark I mean, who does that? Thinks that they are the only school in Ohio. But I proudly display that I'm a Delta, and I proudly display that I'm a Bearcat. So
That's great. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask? If not, I will turn it over to Mark. Don't see any questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Felicity. Thank you, Anaya and Deborah, for joining us today. Really love the conversation that we had going on, and you all provided a lot of great insight. A note for our alumni who are attending, if you want to become more involved and you want to participate in panels like Felicity, Anaya, and Deborah did today, please feel free to shoot me an email and let's talk about how you might be able to do the same thing in the areas that fit you best.